Hi everyone, my name's Lawrence Akers. Thank you so much for joining my presentation today. I'm going to be talking to you about how you can create great sounding hypnosis recordings from the comfort of your own home. Before I get into that though, I really want to say a massive thank you to Glenn Jones for allowing me to be part of the HypnoSummit. There's amazing speakers on this, and I have no doubt that everyone watching this has just been soaking up all of the incredible wisdom that many of these speakers have offered. And so I'm completely thrilled and honored to be included in this lineup. Now, by the end of my training today, my hope is that you feel absolutely comfortable, competent, ready, and eager to get behind your computer and to start creating some fantastic hypnosis audio. If you haven't done that before, then this presentation is absolutely the right one for you to watch. I'll be going step by step through the entire process, talking about what it is that you need to be able to create some hypnosis recordings at home, giving you some tips and tricks along the way. And my promise is that by the end of this hour, you're going to have the knowledge you need to be able to create something at home that you can be proud of. So with that, let's begin. Welcome to Recording Hypnosis Audio 101. Now, cover a little bit first again about what it is that we'll cover today. So the first one is why you should learn to record hypnosis audio. What's the value in taking the time to learn this skill, and how will it benefit you? We'll chat about the what, where, when, and how of recording. And a lot of people don't think about what the best kind of environment is to be able to record in, and that's something that's actually important to consider. The easiest way to make a hypnosis recording, and by that I mean the easiest way to get a good quality file that you're going to be able to work with. How to do your first recording. This is step by step. I'll be able to show you exactly what button you need to press, what you need to do at every given moment. There'll also be lots of tips and tricks in this as well, in terms of what to do about when you make mistakes, how to make sure you don't have the sound of paper in the background, all those sort of things. How to edit out mistakes in your recording. So inevitably when you're doing recording, you will trip up over your words. I do it all the time. And so I'll show you how to be able to edit out those mistakes quickly and easily. How to clean up your recording. So inevitably there might be some background noise going on. We'll look a little bit about how to fix that up. How to add background music to your recording. How to export it as a WAV or MP3 file. I'll explain a little bit more about what they actually are and what you might want depending on your circumstances. And a little bit about a quick look at cloud storage as well. So a little bit about me. Not too much though. Hi, my name is Lawrence, if we haven't met before. My background was actually in the creative and music industry, where I worked for many years there. I've come to hypnotherapy in about the last 5 years. I started up Release Hypnosis in Melbourne. I've been doing a recording for Hypnotherapists Workshop for about the past 4 years, and it actually started because when I was studying to be a hypnotherapist, I noticed that many of my fellow students were actually quite technophobic, and they remind me a lot of my mum, who would often say things like, I'm afraid I'll break the internet. And I found it kind of ironic that people who were studying to be hypnotherapists and help people to let go of their limiting beliefs all had these limiting beliefs themselves around technology. And so I really wanted to create a course that was going to be able to help people to let go of those limiting beliefs, and to be able to recognize just how easy and creative and fun recording was. And so to date, I've run something like 12 workshops in person, as well as set up my online version of the course too. And as you can see, I've also presented for Australian Hypnotherapy Association, for HypnoBiz Australia, for the AACHP, amongst other places. I actually have 2 podcasts. I have one called Outthink, which was aimed at mental health in the LGBT space. And more recently, I've started one called The Confident Hypnotherapist, which is, looking at that topic of, why is it that some hypnotherapists are just exceedingly confident in their ability, while others might get in their head and get in their own way. So that's a little bit about myself. I won't go too much more about that. So I'll chat a little bit about why learning to record might be a valuable skill. And let's start with the obvious here. While many of us were online prior to COVID-19, we now live in a world where being online is absolutely essential. Not only that, I think I'm finding that there are many people out there who are enjoying being online. In fact, they, in many cases, might prefer it to seeing people in their clinic. Now we're seeing clients online via Zoom, which is great. We begin to embrace technology more and more. And as we step away from those old limiting beliefs that we've had about what we can do with technology, now feels like the time where we might be able to embrace what we might be able to do, what else we might be able to do. And I invite you to consider these things as I talk through why learning this skill might be of value. Excuse me. So, number one, from a marketing perspective, learning how to record means that you can create giveaways and lead magnets that are likely to attract more people to your service. Now, if you don't know what a lead magnet is, essentially when you go to a website, you might see occasionally a pop-up that comes up that says something along the lines of, if you give us your name and email address, we will send you back a free hypnosis recording. And by doing that, you're effectively getting an email list of people who might be interested in your service. And as we know with modern marketing nowadays, it's really about building engagement with people, building a conversation with them. If they're interested in your recording, then clearly there's a conversation that can be started there. And so learning how to be able to record might be an easy way for you to be able to create giveaways and lead magnets whenever you want that are going to be able to attract those people that are interested in your service more easily. Also your voice is your brand. While many people out there have their specialization and niche experience and are able to present and talk about that, we also know that one of the things that will attract people to you is the sound of your voice. In fact, for some people, they'll quite often say, I heard your recording and you have such a lovely voice. It helped me to just be able to go into that comfortable state so easily. And as hypnotherapists, our voice is our brand. I often have that metaphor of going to the supermarket. At least in the old days, going to the supermarket, you see that lady there, right, that has that tray of the bits of cookie and ask, would you like a bit of this cookie? And, you'll take it and have a nibble, and then inevitably you walk through the aisles and you'll see that packet of cookies and think, yeah, I actually really like that. I'm going to buy that packet of cookies. It's the same sort of thing. It's how do you offer a bite of what it is that you do in order to make sure that people feel that you might be someone that they might turn to when they have a need for a service just like yours. The second point is actually really practical. My aim for today is to show you how easy it is to do some great sounding recordings in the comfort of your own home with the equipment that you most likely already have. And the fact is that, yes, a recording studio would be the easiest way for you to get a recording done. But of course, that comes at an immense cost. And not only that, you have to be ready when you go into the studio. You have to be fully prepared. You have to be in the right mindset to be able to deliver that great performance. Even for me, when I've gone in to do some recording with people, quite often I've noticed that when they do start to do their recording, they can often be quite fast because it's not the usual setting for them. It's not like they're in their clinic room with the client right in front of them. They're sitting there with a microphone and a script in front of them. And that can quite often feel like a very different experience for them. And quite often they'll be faster. And so, you want to make sure that you get it right the first time around if you're going into a recording studio. Now, when you eliminate that problem, when you learn how to use the technology you have at home, then there's no reason why you can't produce a great sounding recording whenever you want. It's practical, it's comfortable, and it doesn't matter if you get it right or not. You can go back and simply do it again. And you can do it whenever inspiration hits. I've been known to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning and go and record something because the inspiration was there. On top of that, once you let go of that old limiting belief that technology is hard and confusing and begin to embrace that it's actually creative and fun, then the only limitation you have are whatever the limits of your imagination might actually be. So one of the things I do in every training is that I invite people to bring a sense of playfulness and fun into what we do. You don't have to get this right. I just want you to play. I just want you to have a bit of fun with this, to explore, to be curious, like learning a new technique or approach. When you're studying, think back to when you were learning parts or aggression. You would have gone into the classroom, you would have sat down, you would have had someone up the front teach you the basics of it, perhaps done a demonstration or two. And you would have left that day knowing the basics of what you had to do. You wouldn't have mastered it yet. That would come with practice and experience, but you would know what you need to do. And that's exactly what this presentation is going to be today for you. It obviously adds value to your clients. This leads me to the next point. Once you realize you can record at home and you're only limited by the limits of your imagination, imagine what value you can add to your clients. One of the things that I do is that I have a hypnosis recording just around relaxation ready. And whenever any clients book with me, I send them that relaxation session prior to coming in to see me. Why? Benefits in two reasons. Firstly, A, they're getting used to the sound of my voice. And B, they're getting used to going into that experience of hypnosis. And inevitably, that means that when they come into the clinic room and sit in my chair, as soon as we start, it's feeling comfortable for them and they're ready to go. You can also offer recording between sessions, and this will help to cement the learning that they've been doing and to help empower them even more. You can offer your recordings as part of your package as well. I know that when people think of packages, sometimes people might think of Sheila Granger's excellent virtual gastric band. And within that, there are 2 recordings. Now, of course, you can easily hand out the recordings of Sheila doing it. However, imagine how powerful it will be for your clients when you're handing them those recordings using your voice instead. Learning the skill also helps you to reach and help more people. Now, many people's idea of a hypnotherapy business is one-on-one clients. What if you can record hypnosis audio and programs that you can sell on your site and create a passive revenue stream? You can create multiple price points, particularly in this current environment where, some economies are a little bit weaker, dipping into recession. If you can create multiple price points that cater to everyone's budget, then you're going to be able to offer help to more people. You can also look at creating custom hypnosis recordings as well. You may not necessarily have to see people one-on-one. You can do a session over the phone or over Zoom where you do that information gathering, and then you can create a custom-made hypnosis recording to send to them as well. It could be an additional service that you can consider doing. The other thing, of course, is that you can consider doing a podcast. I've done a couple of podcasts over time now, and I wholeheartedly recommend it for a few reasons. Firstly, I get to reach out to all these incredible people that I admire and ask if I could speak with them. And you'd be amazed how many people will say yes to that. Then I get to sit down and chat to them and pick their brains on these things that I find fascinating. Then I get to create a podcast out of it, and I get to share it with the wider community and hopefully help more people or get people to benefit out of that. And all through that, it helps to cement that I'm a niche expert in that particular area as well. So if you're perhaps got an area of specialization in anxiety or depression or any topic at all, being able to create a podcast is going to really help cement that you are a leader in that area, and to be able to help more people and to be able to talk to other people in that area. It's networking as well. So really, there are so many reasons why doing a podcast could be really beneficial for you. Please consider it. Lastly, this is really about, I guess, also reflective work for yourself. quite often people aren't aware of what they sound like delivering a session. So what would it be like for you to record some of your sessions, perhaps even to do something a little bit more free form to see what nuggets your unconscious might bring up that you can perhaps reuse, but also to review yourself, to do a bit of reflective work, to listen and see what your session is like and where you may improve or what it is that you actually really like about it. Lastly, it's all about having fun, When you discover that this is easy and inexpensive and creative and fun, an extension of what you are already doing, and that it can be used to attract clients, to reach more people, to do it all with the equipment that you most likely already have, then why wouldn't you want to learn a skill like this? It's going to add value to what you do. So today I'm going to show you the basics, certainly enough that by the end of this, you can, if you want, go and create a hypnosis recording. And I truly hope you do. So are you excited? I hope so. Let's go. So firstly, what do you need to make a hypnosis audio? Well, the obvious first thing is a computer. In this case, look, either a Windows PC or a Mac laptop, anything like that is more than suitable. Now, some of you might be asking about whether or not you can use a phone or a tablet. Yes, of course you can. I find though that it's a little bit harder sometimes to be able to do the editing or the effects that I tend to teach, but of course you can. And perhaps what you could do is use your phone if you wanted to record something, then take that file and bring it into what we do afterwards. That's completely possible. However, the easiest way is to have a desktop or laptop computer, whether it's Mac or Windows, that you can work from. The second thing you're going to need generally is a microphone. Now, of course, some computers come with built-in microphones, and some are good and some are not so much. That's really going to be your own personal opinion there. What I do tend to recommend to people is that if there is anywhere where you are willing to spend a little bit of money to improve the quality, it is generally going to be around the microphone. The one that's in the picture there on the screen, and I've got one right here as well, is the wonderful blue Yeti microphone. I know in Australia they're roughly around $150 to $200, and they are a highly respected microphone within the industry. Now, generally microphones come in two types. There are condenser microphones and there's dynamic microphones. The difference being that condenser can tend to pick up more background noise, but also tend to have a fuller, richer sound. And the majority of USB microphones, that is microphones that you do plug in via the USB port in your computer, will generally tend to be condenser microphones. If you were to get something like the Yeti Blue there, it is a fantastic microphone. It has pattern settings on the back as well, which allow you that if you're doing an interview to be able to have people sitting on both sides of the microphone, or alternatively you can have it just set so that it can be directly in front of you and you can talk into that comfortably. Now, I wonder if you can replicate that picture there. Put your hand up in front of your mouth so it's on the side there. And I wonder if you can say words beginning with P. And now some words beginning with T. What do you notice? You probably notice that as you say those words, you have this expulsion of air that hits your palm. Now imagine what that might do to a microphone. It's likely to create what's referred to as a plosive or an explosion sound as the air hits the microphone. So what do we do around that? Well, we need something that's referred to as a pop filter. And this is simply a filter, like I have one here, that sits in front of the microphone. It's almost like a mesh there. In fact, some people can get away with making their own pop filters by getting something like a coat hanger and a stocking and doing it that way. But it simply sits in front of the microphone so that as the air is expulted, is that a word? As you expel that air, I don't know if it's a word or not. Let's go for that. basically it breaks it up. It doesn't have it hitting the microphone, so you don't have those plosive sounds. Another thing is headphones. This is something simply that you can, as you're mixing the sound to make sure they're at the right level, it sounds right to you. Now, I get asked so often about what kind of headphones I recommend. The reality is that you can have some really nice high quality ones. I tend to think if you can use ones that are going to be close to what people listening to your recordings are going to be using, that would be awesome. The reality is that many people are going to be downloading your recording and putting it onto their smartphones and playing it through the headphones that came with that. So if you can do that, fantastic. Now, I don't go into it here, but another thing that you might want to consider is something like a microphone boom arm. They're simply things that attach to your desk, and you can plug your microphone into it so that as you're doing things like hitting the desktop, you don't make that distortion sound. Lastly, you will need a digital audio workstation. This is a piece of software that basically allows your computer to be able to record sound. Now, the one that we're going to use for this training is a free piece of software. I'll come back to it afterwards, though, only because there's some things I want to discuss first that are equally as relevant, but we will come back to the digital audio workstation, or DAW, as it's known out there, shortly. So, I want to talk about the recording environment. Because the reality is, for many people, the quality of their recording is often 50% the recording environment that they're in. And it's kind of appropriate that I'm doing this webinar session today, simply because I'm in Melbourne at the moment. We are in stage 4 lockdowns, which means that we're only allowed out of the house 1 hour a day. We're not allowed out of the house after 8 p.m. And I live in the roof of a 130-year-old schoolhouse. And the glass is very, very thin, to say the least. In fact, I have a pub directly across the road from me. And pre-COVID, on a Friday and Saturday night, it sounded like I was trying to sleep in the middle of that pub. And I could hear conversations crystal clear. I tell you now, I know everything about what Cheryl did to Trevor, and Cheryl should be ashamed of herself, and Trevor should probably go and see a doctor. I know this in graphic detail because I can hear everything through that glass. And I'm also on a main street. So under normal circumstances, trying to record here can actually be a bit of a challenge. In fact, if you've got headphones on and listening to this, you could probably hear a tram going past my place right now. So it's probably great that I'm able to do this demonstration today in an environment that is kind of challenging, because it will help to prove my point. Ideally, what you are looking for is an environment that is as peaceful as possible and where you're unlikely to be interrupted. In fact, I would dare say it's an environment not too dissimilar to where you see your clients. And if you can get a fairly peaceful, uninterrupted space, then 50% of your challenge, doing a great sound in recording, is done. Absolutely done. There are plugins that will help to remove any background hums or hisses, but it becomes a lot harder when you have, things like, your partner or your children or pets kind of making those noises. I've got here as well an environment where there are soft furnishings and surfaces. If you go into your bathroom where there are tiles and, generally quite harsh surfaces, you'll notice that when you talk, that there's this reverb that happens, this bouncing sound. It's why singing in the shower sounds so good. Is because, there's that natural reverb that happens to make your voice sound a little bit fuller. Whereas in areas where there is soft furnishings and fabrics, that sound doesn't bounce. It gets soaked up into the environment. And that's what's referred to as a dead room. And you want it away from street noise as well. And as I've got there, you want to escape from your partner, children, and pets. You know, the picture there is of one of my boys, and this is not an uncommon challenge for me. And I'm sure that any of you that have cats will probably be very familiar with that challenge yourself. Ideally, if you have one large enough, I would recommend that you go into your closet. I know it's kind of ironic for someone who does a podcast on LGBT mental health. However, being able to go into your closet, there's going to be a lot of clothing there that's going to soften the sound. And, you know, this image here is not my closet, sadly. My closet's a little bit tighter than that, and my partner has way more clothes than that. But if you do have that space, then that is absolutely ideal. In fact, I remember watching one of those House Hunters shows, and there was someone who was recorded audio books, and they had this tiny little room to the side of the bedroom, and they opened it up, and he looked in and went, oh yeah, that's perfect for my little recording studio. So, you know, definitely have a think about that. Alternatively, you know, if you can create a space and throw a doona over you or something like that, it's going to help, provided the doona isn't rubbing against the microphone. These are things we need to consider, and provided you can see, otherwise it's going to be a bit creepy. So if you have your space and you have one that's quiet, peaceful, unlikely to be interrupted, 50% of your challenge is done, okay? Another thing to consider is also your performance. And what I mean by that, and I've got air quotes over that because performance feels funny when we're talking about recording hypnosis, doesn't it? You know, originally I had the title there, your delivery, but it almost sounds like you're expecting a parcel or something. Performance feels right because what we're trying to do is to create a space, an environment for people to be able to go inwards in, you know, a space to have an experience within. And so it's important to be able to create a performance that you would with your clients in the clinic room. And, you know, one of the things I recommend there is that, you know, if you have a script, using an iPad or an online teleprompter is going to be beneficial to avoid the sound of turning pages, because your microphone is going to pick it up, I assure you. Another thing that someone recommended is that if you are recording in the corner, that you could get your script and blue tack it or sticky tape it to the walls as well. I think that's another great suggestion as well. Some people are just naturally gifted. I remember getting together with the wonderful Emma Romano here in Australia to record a meditation for children. And, you know, she parked for an hour. I think we chatted for about 45 minutes, and then we realized we needed to get on with it. And she literally sat down and just did this one take recording. And I think when I went back to edit it, you know, there was very little that needed to be edited there. She was just naturally good at being able to get into that space and to deliver something. However, that's because her performance was so good. You know, she was able to deliver something just perfectly. And then when I went back to edit it, a couple of mispronounced words that I fixed up, added some, you know, it's very much aimed at children, so I added some background sounds of, you know, water and birds flapping and all that sort of thing. Anyway, it's online if you want to go and have a listen to it. It's actually well worth having a listen to. More importantly, slow down. As I mentioned before, when I've done one-on-one work with people recording, quite often because it's such a different experience from seeing clients, they'll just start going way too fast, and I'll have to stop them and say, you know, hey, slow down a little bit here. You know, this is getting very speedy. Quite often what I'll do in that moment is get them to close their eyes, take a few deep breaths, go inwards, and ask them to imagine that perfect session with that perfect client, and to really be able to step back, float out, observe themselves, the way they're delivering it, how they are in that moment, the state that they're in, to fully be able to feel that as they float back into their body, and then bring them back to the room, and then get them to record once they're ready. So I've got there, if you need to, have a mindful moment to get into your own comfortable state, and then record from there. Finally, we're talking about our digital audio workstation. The one that I tend to teach with is something called Audacity. Now, Audacity is free. It's cross-platform, which means that it can be worked on a Windows machine or a Mac or even Linux. It has a lot of amazing features about it. In fact, I know some professional sound engineers who, when they're just wanting to sketch ideas, when they want to get stuff done quickly, will go to Audacity because it's just so easy and straightforward to use, but also just feature-packed. And as I mentioned before, it's free. You can't ask for a better price tag than that. Now, some people have asked me why I don't teach GarageBand or some of the other digital audio workstations out there. It's simply because GarageBand is fantastic, but it's only available on Mac. However, a lot of what I'm teaching here, you should be able to apply across to any digital audio workstation that you come across. There are obviously going to be some differences, but what I'm trying to teach here is a basic way to approach these recording sessions to make it really easy and straightforward for you. And so with that, let's go and meet Audacity. So just quickly, I want to show you how to be able to download Audacity, or at least where to find it from. If you go into Google or any search engine and type in Audacity, you're looking for the URL https://www.audacityteam.org. Click into that, and you'll see up the top there that there is a download option, which will include Windows, Mac, Linux as well. If you go into any of those, you'll be able to find that it has a link to be able to download from there. So if I click on that, it will come to Windows installer right there. Click on that, and it's now downloading down the bottom there. It's roughly 27 megabytes by the looks of it for the PC Windows version. Okay, so once you have installed Audacity and you have it running, you'll be greeted with this interface. Now, I'm not going to go into all the functionality today because it might be a bit of overkill. I want to try to keep it as simple as possible. But I will take a moment to explain some of the different features within here. So, up the top here, you do have your menu pull downs, which have all of the different functions. I'm sure if you've used any kind of programs before, you'll be familiar with the menu pull downs. Here we have the transport bar, and if you've used a tape deck before or a VHS player, you're probably familiar with this. You know, you have pause, play, stop, back to the start, go to the end, and record. The other thing you might notice is that if I hover my cursor over any of the functions here, it will come up with a description of what it is, so it makes it really easy for you to be able to identify it. Now, what we need to do is to be able to tell Audacity where it's going to get its sound input from. And if you have your microphone plugged in, your USB microphone, then all you need to do is go to this little pull-down menu here, where there is the microphone icon. And from that pull-down selection, choose the microphone that you're using. So in this instance, I am using my blue Snowball microphone, couldn't think for a second there, which is currently directly in front of me. The next thing we're going to want to do is to let Audacity know if our recording levels is right. And over here, we have the recording level meter. And you can see on this that it has click to start monitoring. So if I click within that, you can see that as I talk, that green level goes up and down, and it's measuring how loudly I'm talking in terms of decibels. I have a little lever here as well. If I was to lower that down and bring it back up again, it will adjust it. I'll give you an example. If I just keep talking right now, you can hear them getting quieter and quieter. And then as I bring it back up, you can hear me getting louder and louder and louder. You can also see that green level there adjusts accordingly. Now, what we're really aiming for is to get a recording level that is approximately around -6. Now, it might mean sometimes you may need to lean in a little bit. If I get closer in this way, you can certainly hear them getting louder. You can also see really bad hairline, which doesn't thrill me, I can tell you that much. So I'm not going to do that because A, I don't want it to be too loud, and B, I don't want you to see my bad hairline. However, if I know that I'm getting around -6, and you can see that it is generally coming in around that, then I know that my levels are right, and I can click on that again, knowing that they are now set. In order to record, all I need to do is hit my record button. But before doing that, one thing I'm going to recommend to you is that you stay quiet for 5 seconds before you speak. And there is a reason for that, which I will come back to. But anyway, here's the process again, just so you are aware, especially if you're watching this back. One thing I will say is that you always plug your USB microphone in before you start Audacity, or else Audacity may not recognize it in the pull down option. So microphone in first, and then once it's in, you would select your microphone from the pull down option. Once you've done that, you want to adjust your level to make sure that it is roughly around -6 decibels. Once you've done that, you're ready to start recording. And in order to do that, you would hit the record button, be silent for 5 seconds, just allow it to record whatever sound it's hearing, and then you can begin your recording session. So let's do that. Now begin by just allowing your eyes to close. Taking a deep breath. And as you breathe out, just allow yourself to relax a little more. That's right. And as you allow yourself to go deeply further into this experience, you can know whatever it is that you need to know. That's right. I'm going to stop there. A couple of reasons. Firstly, that improvisation was pretty crap. I think we can agree on that. But secondly, I made a few mistakes. And so here's what we want to do. We want to be able to first edit out those mistakes. So the obvious question is, how do we do that? Well, first thing I'm going to do is go into my pull down view and choose track size and choose fit to width. And that will now show me that entire recording that I've just made in one solid line. I should point out that I could also use the zoom in and zoom out keys as well. However, just for convenience, I'm going to go to view, track size, fit to width, or Control F if you're on a PC. And I can see that there are mistakes here and here. Now, what you may not have noticed is that I started that sentence, coughed, and then I started that sentence again. So if we listen back to it, that's right. And as you allow yourself, so we can see at the start of the sentence is right there at this point, when really we want to be able to have it start there. So how do I do that? How do I edit it out? Well, firstly, I go to the start of my recording where the mistake is, and on my mouse, I click the left mouse and I hold it down to indicate that I'm about to make a selection. And holding that left mouse down, I move it across to the start of where I want it to be, and I let go. You can see that it becomes a finger point once I've done that. So I've highlighted that selection. And now once I've done that, I can simply hit the delete key, and that mistake is now gone. Never happened. And again, similar situation over here. If I listen to this, whatever it is that you need to know. Yes. That's right. So I can easily just highlight again the part that I want removed, hit delete, and that is now gone. That's now clean. There's one thing I generally tell people if they're recording with me that they should do. And that is that if they make a mistake, Then they add pause, clap, pause, and go to the start of the previous sentence. And the reason for that is that it creates that audio mark, that spike that we can visually see, so that when I sit down to edit the recording, because there's all those markers there, it's easy and quick for me to be able to go back and just edit those mistakes out. So that's the easy way to be able to mark out and to edit any of those mistakes. Inevitably, you are going to make mistakes when you do a recording, provided that you make sure you give a bit of a clap, go back to the start of the previous recording, it'll be all fine. If you're doing a long recording, like a 30-minute recording, then what you might need to do is to click to where the mistake is. So if I was to undo, this is another good point. There's an undo function on Audacity. So if you do an edit and an edit isn't good, you don't like it, hit undo. And you can see that the previous thing you did is brought back again, so you can redo it. And again, I'll bring back the other one as well. So if it's a 30-minute recording where there are lots of mistakes, sometimes what you might need to do is click just before the mistake and then use the zoom in to be able to get closer into that and to move it across. And then you can highlight it that way. It becomes a lot tighter. The other thing is that if you've made a selection and it's a little bit off, if you move your mouse to just before that selection, you can see that this little finger happens. And once you see that finger, if you were to click on your left mouse, you can now move either of these lines so it can be a little bit tighter that way. And then hit delete, and that mistake is again gone. And you can use the zoom out to zoom back out, go to the next one, zoom in, highlight, delete, gone. So we're now at the point where we have our recording, which is free of any of those moments where we tripped up over our words. It's now running smoothly. And what you'll probably notice, particularly in this recording, you can see that in those moments, 5 seconds prior where I was talking, there is actually a bit of background noise on that. If I play it back, we can see that it's coming in around negative 40 decibels of background noise. And so what we might want to do is a bit of a noise reduction to just tidy that up. Now, Audacity has a built-in noise reduction function, which is fantastic. Here's how to use it. The first thing you want to do is to highlight a selection of the background noise. You want to make sure that you're not speaking in this, you're not breathing in it, that there's no additional noise that you want to be included. Just a few seconds of that silence, so to speak, the background noise that you experience. Once you've done that, you can go into the effect function, choose noise reduction, and you'll see this box come up. And the first step is to get a profile of noise reduction. That is to tell Audacity, here is an example of the background noise that I would like for you to remove. And you click that, and you'll see that that box disappears. We've now told it that here is an example of the background noise we'd like to remove. Now you can double click on the left mouse to highlight the entire file. Go back into Effect, Noise Reduction. Generally, the settings that are in Audacity are pretty good to use as a default. If you explore a little bit, you'll find what these levers do. Essentially, what we're saying here is that whenever Audacity has an example of that noise profile, it's going to reduce it by 16 decibels is the key thing to understand with these settings here. So click OK on that. And you can see immediately that that line is a lot cleaner. In fact, if we play that, it's gone right down in terms of background noise. And if we listen to the actual recording itself, now begin by just allowing the eyes to close. You can hear there's still a richness to the voice. It hasn't impacted on that. It's just been able to remove that background noise. So just to recap, we've been able to do your first recording. We've been able to edit out those mistakes. We've been able to add a noise reduction, which has removed any of that background hiss or hum that might be there. And now we're going to look at how to make the file or the sound a little bit louder. And that's via a process referred to as normalization. So to do that, I can go into the effects, go into normalize. And what we're telling it to do is to normalize this recording to the highest level of -1 decibels. And if I click on that, you'll see that the file has become a lot louder straight away. One of the things I should add at this point is that, as you can tell from clicking into the effects folder here, Audacity is not short of having effects. There are a lot of different effects that you can explore and play with. And it's a bit like going down a rabbit hole, to be honest with you. I think once people start to explore it, they realize that there's a lot there that they can do. But then you run the risk of doing effects for the sake of having effects. And that can quite often actually distract people and take them out of the experience. So one of the things I do recommend to people is, yes, by all means add effects, but make sure that you don't go overboard with it. Try to find that sweet spot in terms of the right amount of effects that are going to enhance the experience so that it doesn't actually work against you. To be honest with you, quite often when I'm recording something like a lead magnet, I keep it really simple. I go in, I do my recording, I edit out the mistakes, I do some noise reduction on it, I normalize it, and then I do what I'm about to do now, which is add some background music. So obviously one of the things I will say about that before we go ahead is that if you are using background music, it's best to always make sure that you have background music that is royalty free and that you've paid the commercial license for. Obviously you're going to go into a whole lot of copyright issues if you don't do that. There's certainly organizations internationally that provide some really great hypnosis background music files that you can use. And you're doing the right thing by making sure that you're paying these artists and supporting them in their work so they can continue to do that as well. So in order to add background music, I'd go up to my file option and I'll go into import and audio. And then for my desktop, I'd go into my folder where the music is, and I'd select that music track and hit open. Audacity will then read that file and bring it into Audacity as a separate track of its own. Now, obviously my original recording here is a minute long, and the background music that I have here is 30 minutes long. So just to make it easier for me to demonstrate, what I'm going to do is to highlight a portion of it and to delete that so that now I can just zoom in on what's there and make it easier to show you. Now, if I was to play this right now, it's going to be a bit of a car crash. In fact, let's do that so you can hear. Now begin by just allowing your eyes to close. Taking a deep breath. And as you breathe out, just allow yourself to relax a little more. That's right. So there's a couple of things that we can notice straight away there. Firstly, it starts at the same time together, and we may not want that to happen. And secondly, although my voice is perhaps a bit too loud in this, one thing that I find commonly in a lot of recordings that people do is that they're not adjusting the sound of the background music and the voice accordingly. And as a result, the background music is often too loud and their voice gets lost. So let's address both of those points. Firstly, I don't want my spoken word and the music to start at the same time. I want to be able to move that. The easiest way to do that is to go into this little, looks like a little dumbbell. It's actually referred to as the time shift tool. If I click on that and then go back to my top file, I can now click on my file and I can move it to wherever I want it to start. So if I want to start at the 15-second mark, I can move it there. And then I can go back and click on the selection tool icon to lock that into place. And now it starts 15 seconds in. The other thing I might want to do, because my voice was quite loud there, is I have at the front here of the track, I have the master control. So I can just turn that down a little bit there as well. You'll also notice that there is a left and right function there, which means that I can pan this voice all the way to the left, I can pan it all the way to the right. And given that there's multi-tracks, while I'm not going to go into it now, for those that are interested in causing confusion for their people, that might be of value to you. What if there was something on the left? What if there was something on the right? Something to think about there. Now that I've done that, I want to be able to come to my music track, and let's just see how this sits again. Now begin by just allowing your eyes to close. Taking a deep breath. So quite often what we want is the ability for the music to dip while we're speaking. There's a really easy way to do this in Audacity. If we go to this little hourglass figure here, which is the envelope tool, I can click on that, and you'll see there's these blue lines that come up here. And essentially what I can do is I can take my little hourglass figure and I can click within that to create marker points. So there's one marker point, do another one there. And I can do one at the end as well. Now what I can do is to click on my left mouse and to drag that marker point in. And do that the same here. And basically, when I click back on the selection tool now and lock that in, what will happen is that when it reaches that point of the recording, it's going to dip down. This controls the volume level. So let's have a listen to that. Now begin by just allowing your eyes to close. Taking a deep breath. And as you breathe out, just allow yourself to relax a little more. That's right. And as you allow yourself to go deeply further into this experience, you can know whatever it is that you need to know. That's right. Now the other thing, of course, is that you're probably going to want some sort of fade out at the end there. And again, that's really easy to do. Once that recording is done, if I decide that I want to be able to fade out at the 1:30 mark, first thing I'm going to want to do is to remove the excess file. So just highlight that and delete. And then I want to highlight from the end of my talk. I want to keep going to that 1:30 mark until I see that yellow line. There it is there. I don't want to go beyond that, because anywhere beyond that is not the music, and it means I'll be fading out into nothing, which means that we're more likely to hear an abrupt end to that file. So now I've highlighted that. I'm going to go into Effect, choose Fade Out, and that's now done. And if we were to play that, you would hear a natural fade out happening after I finish talking. You need to know. That's right. Now, one of the things I have noticed about this recording also is that I have some sounds on my track here. if I was to put that onto solo and listen to that, you can see there's some spikes there. Now, there's a couple of things I can do. I can highlight any of the other recording parts there that are silent and go into edit and copy and highlight over that part which has the noise on it and paste. And it essentially replaces it with that clean recording. Now, the thing to remember about Audacity is that as an audio workstation, it's a bit like a word processor in that you can highlight, copy, and paste parts of it. So for instance, I have this part here. And as you breathe out, just allow yourself to relax a little more. If I decided that I wanted to repeat that throughout the recording, as it's highlighted there, I can copy that. And I can go to wherever I want the recording, and I can hit paste. And there it is again. Or alternatively, if I have, say, something, what's this bit here? And as you allow yourself, say I want to replace that with this here, I can simply highlight that part of the recording, copy, highlight that part of the recording, and paste, and it will paste it over the top of it instead. Now, this might be particularly useful if you've done a recording and you didn't like how you particularly phrased something, or there's a word wrong that's just irking you. I'm sure we've all done recordings like that. You can simply go and re-record that line and then copy and paste it over the top of it instead. Once you have your recording done and you're happy with it, now you're at a point where you can export the finished product. Now you have a couple of options here. You can export it as a WAV file or an MP3 file. Now, if you don't know what they are, let me take a moment to explain it to you. They are both file types for music. The difference being that MP3 is referred to as a compressed lossy file. And what that means is basically the way it works is that it looks at any of the frequencies that are outside of the human hearing, and it strips them away, it removes them. So it creates a more compressed, compact file. And this is particularly useful if you're planning to email this to your clients. So MP3 is going to be a great format if you're planning to be able to send these to people, whereas a WAV file doesn't have any form of compression at all. In fact, it's a lossless file. It means that all of the data is there, but it also means it's a really big file. And by some amount, it's bigger. So it's not particularly something that you would normally email to people or to be able to get them to download. It's not going to fit necessarily with how people consume their music nowadays. So in most cases, you're going to want to have it as an MP3 file. To export your finished product, you simply go into File, Export, and you have an option to export as MP3 or WAV. We're going to choose MP3 for today. And then it comes up with a selection of where you want to save it to. So I'm going to save it into my HypnoSummit folder. I'm going to give it a name. And underneath that, we have our format options as well. So variable is fine, 110 to 150 kps is absolutely fine as well. When I hit save, the next thing that's going to come up is referred to as metadata. And what metadata is basically information that's attached to the file so that when you put that file into a file player, it's going to come up with all that information straight away. And at the moment, what's coming up is the metadata for my licensed music. So I can clear that for the moment. And I can add this information in. So in this instance, I'm going to say the artist is Thomas Akers. The track title is Test. Thomas Akers. 2020 Hypnotherapy. And now once I hit OK, we can see that the file is exported and it will be now saved to my destination folder. And you can go in and play that and you'll find that it's now perfectly mixed, ready for you to share with the world. And I mentioned at the start that we're going to touch on cloud storage because there's a lot there to unpack However, the key things that, nowadays I recommend that people use something like Dropbox or Google Cloud. Both of them have free options that you do not need to pay for. What you can tend to do is simply take that MP3 file, drop it into your Dropbox or Google Cloud, and then once it's finished uploading, you can right click on that and get a shareable link. And then you can take that link and you can send it in the email to your client or whatever. If it's something that you've tailor-made for them, you can make sure you can say that you're going to delete that file after 7 days, just for privacy reasons or whatever. And that should be absolutely fine. While I'm on that topic though, also consider that when you are doing a hypnosis recording, particularly if it's something that you intend to perhaps give away or sell online, make sure at the start of it you say things like who you are and where you're from. Because if it's good, people are probably going to pass this around to their friends. And if they do that, you want to make sure that they know that it's you so that they can come and find you as well. I know many people have that feeling they should add things like, do not listen to this recording while operating heavy machinery or while driving. And, I don't know many people that do think they're going to listen to hypnosis while operating heavy machinery, but it's often good just to have that disclosure there as well. I know that other people also talk about, if there's an ongoing medical issue, to make sure that you go and see a doctor, those sorts of things as well. It's well worth just considering what you're going to open up with before you start your recording. The other thing to consider is, does your recording need a pre-talk file? Some people tend to do that. They might have a hypnosis recording that's 20 minutes long, but they also might have a pre-talk file they ask people to listen to before that one as well. So these are things just to consider. However, this has just been a quick overview in terms of how you can create something really quickly and easily. And I encourage you to download Audacity, to play with it, to explore. I think once you begin to get the hang of it, you recognize just how versatile this program actually is and how much fun and creativity you can have with it as well. Obviously, we've only touched the tip of the surface. There is so much more that you can do in terms of effects or binaural beats or advanced recording techniques that I don't have the time today to touch in or to explain. However, if you are interested, please feel free to drop me a line. I'll be more than happy to go into a bit more detail for that for you. Otherwise, I really hope that you have found this presentation beneficial and interesting, and perhaps even surprising at how easy and straightforward it is. I'll be really chuffed if I know that what you've watched today has inspired you to go and explore and to play and to just do something that's creative and innovative and probably going to help a lot more people in the process too. So thank you for watching. If you wish to drop me a line, my email is Lawrence, LAWRENCE, @releasehypnosis.com.au. Otherwise, go play, be curious, have fun, and I will see you around. Take care.